Welcome to qnawire.
All right, so we're given a monopolistically competitive firm, and we're asked a couple of questions regarding, profit maximization and long-run equilibrium. All right, so let's get into it. So here's my mouse. All right. So the best way to approach these questions is actually understanding the firm dynamics of itself. Um, so in regards to long-run equilibrium, there are two ways you need to think about it. The first way is looking at it in the long run. The long run. And then you can probably guess the second way. It is the short run. So the big condition you need to know for the long run um, is that, let's get a bullet point here, profit in the long run is zero. Zero. Let's get all caps. Zero. That's like the big concept you need to know for monopolistically competitive firm in the long run. And a lot of times in economics, we take these, concepts and we, transform them into mathematical equations. And for this, concept, our mathematical equation, for profit equaling zero, means that our price is equal to our ATC. If you're curious about this, you can multiply both sides by Q, and you'll see that total revenue is equal to total cost. But the big picture here is that profit equaling zero means that price is equal to ATC. So yeah. So then for the short run, this bullet point here, you probably guess what the concept is. So in this case, our profit is going to be not zero. Not zero. And our mathematical equation for this case is just the opposite of price equaling ATC. So it's an inequality in this case. So it's going to be price is going to be can be less than ATC, or it could be greater than ATC. So these are big things we need to know. So the dynamics of the firm basically works if you have some firm that's in the short run. Usually it has some kind of disequilibrium. In this case, right, price is less than ATC or it's greater than ATC. But given enough time, all of these firms will regardless of where they start from the short run, they will eventually approach the long run. So for example, in our case with this price is less than ATC guy, so if price is less than ATC, that means that we're currently making negative economic profit. And what that does to the market is that it drives out sellers. Um, and because sellers leave the market, our supply goes down and our price will eventually go up. So a way of visualizing that is just with your standard supply and demand graph. So here are axes, price quantity. So downward sloping is demand, upward sloping is supply. So like I said, the price is less than ATC. That means negative economic profit. Suppliers are getting driven out of the market. So what that does is, I'll call this S0 initial. That's going to shift our supply up. And as you can see, it's going to increase our price. So this price less than A equals C, this price here is going to go up, and then it'll eventually hit P equals ATC, and profit equals zero. So it's the exact same thing, except flipped for our price is greater than ATC case. So because there's profit being made in the market, that's going to attract a lot of sellers, which is going to shift our supply up, or I guess it'll increase our supply. And then see, as you can see, it'll put our price down, and eventually, get it back to price equals ATC, where they're equal. So that's like the big picture for this slide is that, in the long run, for a monopolistic competitive firm, our profit is zero, and that means our price equals ATC. That's, the dynamics of the firm. So now that we got that, we should understand profit maximization. So for profit maximization, so if you are a firm, the first question you need to address is your quantity. How much are we going to produce? How like how much of our certain good are we going to produce? So to answer that question, quantity, and answer this question, we're going to produce at a quantity at which our marginal revenue is equal to our marginal cost. I'm sure you've seen this rule quite a bit throughout your microeconomics course. But it's just like all other firms. We're going to produce at a quantity at which MR equals MC. So we have a quantity from that. But then our next big question is our price. How do you figure out our price? So I think the best way to answer this question is actually look at our graph for a monopolistically competitive firm. So let's get our axes labeled here. So we have, our downward sloping demand curve because we're price makers in a monopolistically competitive firm. And then we have our MR curve based off that, MR here, and we have a curvy check mark for our marginal cost curve. And then our ATC curve, remember ATC intersects MC at its minimum. And then there we go. So that's our completed graph. So let's try to profit maximize this. So to find our quantity, right, we take our MR equals MC. So that is right here. So we're going to produce at this quantity. But we're not going to produce at this exact price. So this price right here, yeah, ignore it. Amateurs will select that. But we're professionals here. So whenever you're trying to find a price for a price maker, you're going to go all the way up to this demand curve. So it's about right here. So this is our real price. And the reason why is because our demand curve is actually, this is like what people are demanding. This is what our consumers are demanding. And we're going to obviously charge the price that our consumers are demanding. And in this case, it's higher. So, of course, we're going to charge a higher price. So that's how you find our price. So the way we find our price, write that down as a rule here, we're going to charge our price from our demand curve. So we'll find our MR equals MC first, and then we'll go to our demand curve to find our price. But if you look in the question, in our previous slide, we gave direct relations between our price and ATC, just as they give us in the question. But in this case, for the question, they're giving us relationship between price and marginal cost. And right now, we just have rules regarding MR, MC, and D. So we need to transform, our current equations into something that relates to price and marginal cost. So I think the first step to doing that is going to be by establishing something pretty important. So something that we should notice is that regardless of like what quantity you produce, right, we're always going to charge from our demand curve. So if we charge a quantity like right here, right, we're going to charge this price. A quantity right here, we're going to charge this price. So from that we can get to this conclusion that our demand curve actually represents our price curve. So that's going to be our first step in trying to establish some kind of connection between price and marginal cost. We're going to say one, that our demand curve is actually equal to our price curve. So, and the next step we need to establish as well, and this is sometimes hard for some people to understand. So, try my best to explain it. So, our marginal revenue curve is actually based off of our demand curve. And you can read into your book probably to give you like a really in-depth explanation. But the big picture, the key takeaways is that except for the first unit of production right here, our demand curve will always be greater than our marginal revenue curve. So, so for this first quantity right here, quantity equaling 1, demand and MR will intersect. They'll actually be the exact same point. But then as we increase our quantity, our demand curve is bigger than our MR curve. See these gaps here? So that's something important to take note of. So a key takeaway we can get from that is that our demand curve is always going to be greater than or equal to, because that quantity equals 1 case, it's going to be always be greater than or equal to our MR curve. Okay, so that's actually all we need to actually get a relationship between price and marginal cost. So let's do a little substitution here. So our demand is always going to be greater than or equal to our marginal revenue. And this is when I say these, these in the green right here. This is if we're profit maximizing. These are some things we should expect. So profit maximizing, we should expect our demand to equal our price and our demand to be greater than or equal to our MR. So if our demand is greater than or equal to MR, that means that we can use this rule right here to say that demand is greater than or equal to MC. Because if MR is equal to MC at profit maximization, then we can just substitute it in for here. So our demand is greater than or equal to our MC. And then we can use this guy right here to establish that price is going to be greater than or equal to MC. So using all the rules we just talked about, we can find this conclusion that our price is going to be greater than or equal to MC when we're profit maximizing. Okay, so we know how to, we know the dynamics of the firm in the long run and the short run, and we also know how to profit maximize, so I think we're ready for this question. So let's get a little refresher of the big rules that we established. So for a long run equilibrium, our price is equal to our ATC, and then for profit maximizing condition, right, our price is going to be greater than or equal to, price is going to be greater than or equal to our marginal cost. That's probably super loud. I don't know how loud it's going to be. Sorry if it's. Here are big rules here. Now we can just easily just get these questions done. So A says price is less than our marginal cost. So these guys cannot be profit maximizing. They're not profit maximizing because our rule is that it's greater than or equal to MC. And then our next give us is that price is greater than ATC at this point as well. And then this is also just as easy to say that it is not in the long run because it's not equal to ATC. So, since price is greater than ATC at this point, the people are making profit. That's attracting sellers to the market, which is going to drive the price down to the point where price is equal to ATC. And the way we need to profit maximize is that we need to either shift our price up and or equal to become profit maximizing. So let's do that. Then part B says our price is greater than marginal cost. So because greater than marginal cost, that means that we are profit maximizing. And then in this case, price is less than our ATC. We are not in long run. Not in long run. So what's going to happen is because there's negative economic profit being made in the market, it's going to drive sellers out, which is going to drive that price up. So then let's see if I can fit this. Part C, our price is exactly equal to marginal cost. These are interesting case here. So remember, this is true, I guess, because when we see our profit maximization condition, it's price is greater than or equal to MC. But there's a little star attached here because it's only equal to MC at the first unit of production. So this is only true. Let's see. So this is true profit maximizing if Q equals 1. Which is, pretty unlikely, right? If you're like a really big cereal company, there's really low chance you're only producing like one cereal box, right? But, we can say it's true. And then, it might seem like a small thing and really, really like intricate, but I think, if you represent and you show these like teachers and your graders that you understand this really small detail, it just shows like a really good understanding of the material. So I think it's like cool if you understand that it only equals MC at the first quantity production. And then our price in this case is greater than ATC. So that's super easy, right? It's not equal to ATC, so that means it cannot be in long run. So then our last condition, finally made it. So our price is greater than our marginal cost. So that means they are profit maximizing. And then look at that, price is equal to ATC. So that means we are in the long run. So we are in the long run. because we're making zero economic profit. And don't be too confused when I say zero economic profit. It's not a bad thing. When you think of like zero profit, we mostly think of like breaking even, which is like not a good thing. But because it's economic profit, that means that we're using our resources in the most efficient way possible. So that's it for the video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you guys learned something as well. And thanks for watching.